So this really isn't about anything. This is just simple, ordinary, natural life, just appearing as this, just appearing as what's just appearing or happening there. So the sound of this voice is just ordinary, simple, natural life, just appearing as that. The sensation of sitting in a chair is just that ordinary, natural, simple life, just appearing as very simply sitting in a chair, listening to a voice. Thoughts apparently happening, sounds apparently happening. Whatever it is, it's all just simple, ordinary, natural life. And it is absolutely whole. There's nothing missing about whatever is arising. So there's nothing separate about this. There's no sort of additional happening. There's nothing happening somewhere else. There is just this, literally, what's apparently happening. And it is just an appearance. It's simple, ordinary, natural life, but just appearing to be that way, just appearing as that. And because life can appear as anything, because it's just completely free, it doesn't serve any master, it doesn't have any direction or purpose or meaning, or has no intention at all. There's nothing driving it. Then of course it can just appear in any way or form. So it can also, as well as just appearing as simple, ordinary, natural life, appearing as wholeness, it can also appear as a kind of a sense that there is something separate, that there is, you could call it, and kind of an almost like an artificial sense or an illusory sense that there is separation. And this sense seems to arise as soon as there is a sense of a being, someone, which arises very, very early on for the human being. There's this sense in the human that there is a person, an apparent person, and as soon as this sense of a person arises, there seems to, this simple, ordinary, natural life appearing as wholeness seems to be lost in some way. There then seems to be this sort of reality, or life is then appearing as something separate. And just to be clear with that, it is the individual which is separation, or it is the person that is separation. The person is separation and living in separation, but it isn't this person that creates the separation. And that seems to, this sort of separate experience seems to just cover over this simple, ordinary, natural wholeness. So what then happens is the body, the physiology, the mind and the body seem to sort of respond to this sense to be separate, to be someone who is separate. And it then begins seeking, it then begins to look for, to sort of find out why that is, or what's missing, what's been lost. It's this sense of something lost or missing. So the seeker is or the seeking begins, and the seeker is born, if you like. The seeking is born with the individual, but the seeking begins, and then the real seeker is born in a way, and the seeker then is then looking for ways to make this back into the wholeness that it feels has been lost with the arising of itself, or with the arising of the seeking energy. And the seeking energy is just a response to this artificial sense of separation. And the seeker is looking for wholeness. But the whole time that the seeker is looking for wholeness, this is the wholeness that it's looking for. But the seeker can never see that, because the seeker lives in this kind of movement of next. What's next? What's next? It's looking, it's seeking. The seeking is always for somewhere else or for something else. So the seeker is always overlooking the simple, ordinary, natural life that this is already, in favor of something that it thinks is going to be better, a moment somewhere in the future, a happening somewhere in the future, which it feels is going to bring everything that the seeker feels it's lost or is missing. And if most seekers were honest with themselves, they wouldn't even be able to tell you what's lost or missing. There's just a sense that there's something. As the individual arises, it then sort of evolves into this personal identity, and this sense of living in a separate world seems to reinforce itself, and the seeking then begins. And most seekers won't be able to tell you what they're seeking for, just the sense that something is lost with this artificial sense of separation. And it is for the seeker or for the individual that the simplicity, the naturalness, the wholeness has been lost. And really all the message is saying or suggesting, it's not even saying anything, all the message is suggesting is that that wholeness hasn't been lost. It's just apparently changed form into this artificial sense of separation. But that too is wholeness just appearing in that way. So actually, this sense of separation, the seeking and the kind of sense of loss that is driving the seeking, and that sort of sense of something wrong about this is all also simple, natural, ordinary life just appearing in that way. And what can happen is just this sort of this energy, this sort of contracted sense of being a separate person can in some cases just seemingly unravel. And then what's obvious in that is that the simple, ordinary, natural life was just always here. And it's never gone anywhere. It never left. It never went anywhere. The whole thing was just, the whole separate reality was just appearing as an illusion or a dream. It never went anywhere. It never goes anywhere. Okay. And Mohammed, come on in.
Hi.
Hello, hi.
Hello. You said that the seeker looking for the next.
Mm.
So if we stay aware of this moment of what appears, can help to stop seeking.
Well, you could if you were there. You could if the seeker wasn't illusory. Yeah. And if there really was something else to find other than this, what's apparently happening, then yes, you could. But unfortunately, you're not there, and the seeker is illusory, and seeking is kind of happening as a part of a dream.
So it's utterly hopeless.
Of course.
For the seeker.
Of course, because it's not really happening. And this is already the wholeness that the seeker is looking for.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay. It's the only way you can really describe it in the end. Sort of, there can be a reflecting on seeking. There is just no one. In the end, there is just no one. There never was someone. There never was any separation. There was never an individual. But just sort of the reflecting on the seeking, it can only be described as happening as a kind of a dream of some kind. The dream that something's lost. The dream, and part of which is the dream or the illusion that something needs to happen to make this whole and complete. But it's a dream that no one wakes up from. Because when the dream is over, it's obvious that there was never anyone dreaming, or in a dream, or as a dream. The dream just seems to be the totality of that experience, or the illusion. The dream and the illusion, same thing. The illusion just seems to be the totality of that experience. And the illusion is that it was even happening at all, of course. And the illusion only appears for the illusion. The individual only appears for the individual. So when you die, everyone dies. And Mohammed, again.
So when I try to be aware of what's happening, it is another happening, but no one doing it.
Well, there is no you to be aware of what's happening. That's the illusion. Awareness is the illusion. That self-awareness that could be aware of what's happening is a part of the dream. So when the individual falls away, there is just nothing left as having that illusory self-awareness or or as being aware of this or of what's happening. But of course, that's never really happening at all in the first place, of course.
But
It's part of
apparently
the illusion.
as meditation, apparently happening as meditation, as being aware of.
Well, in meditation, there may be the sense that there is someone there meditating who's being aware of something. Yeah. And really what's being pointed out from here is that's the dream.
Yeah.
That there is someone there who is being aware of something whilst meditating. So there is just, if there is meditation happening, then there is just meditation happening. That's empty fullness just appearing as meditation, or that's just wholeness appearing as meditation. But of course, if there is someone there, then quite often the meditation, particularly for the seeker, in the sense that we are talking about seeking in this meeting, then quite often the meditation is an intention to get somewhere or to get something or to see something or get closer to wholeness or to oneness or whatever the seeker imagines, of course. But of course, that's a part of the dream, or that is the illusion, or part of the illusion, that there is someone who can get to where they think they need to be in order for this to be whole. It's just never lost. The wholeness is just never lost. So it's wholeness just appearing as someone meditating, looking for wholeness. There's nothing about that appearance that isn't whole. It's wholeness appearing as the dream, if you like, that there is someone who needs to find something.
Thanks so much.
Okay. And the individual never hears that, by the way. The individual can never hear that. That seemingly, the illusion or the dream seemingly continues for as long as that seemingly continues. The individual will never hear that, though. It will fight until the bitter end. Because it wants to survive, of course. It doesn't want to hear this. It doesn't want to hear this, what's being said here. In fact, it's the last thing it wants to hear. The seeker wants to be told there's something it can do. The individual wants something to do. That's why it prefers to go somewhere or listen to something which is making suggestions about what it can do to find its way back to wholeness. So the individual would much rather meet a dream teacher who's going to give instructions or advice on how to find wholeness, how to lose one's me. And it's not there. Very often that will be about being a better person. If you live and conduct yourself in a certain way by a certain set of principles, or code of living, or being nice to everyone, or being loving to everyone, or something like that, then you will find what you're looking for. It's a way of being. So part of the kind of neurosis that the seeker has to live with is all these sorts of trying to be a certain way and then failing. If you're anything like me as a seeker, anyway. A message in the chat. Could you talk about there are no others, parents, friends? Thanks. Well, apparently there are parents and apparently there are friends. There's just no individual appearing as parents or friends. So there are no separate parents, friends appearing as people, individuals in that sense. There's just apparent parents, friends. But the funny thing is when the me dies, there's just no one as having a sense of being in a friendship or as being in a relationship with parents anymore. There's just parents, or there's just friendship. It's very, very simple. It's just so simple, unimaginably simple. And for the individual, relationships are about the most complex thing there is to negotiate and navigate. How to be in relationships, how to have better relationships, how to have more successful relationships. The amount of books that have been written about how the individual can have better relationships. And not that any of that's wrong, and some of that might be helpful for an individual, of course. But no, in the end, no, there's just no one having there are no more relationships anymore. There's no one having a relationship with anything anymore. The individual seems to spend it, all of its apparent existence in living in relation to everything else. And that's sort of, in a way, the complicating factor. Everything then becomes this relationship about how to maintain this relationship with everything, relationship with life, relationship with others, relationship with oneself, how to have a better relationship with oneself. Again, reams and reams and reams of books being written on how to do this and be more successful, how to have a better relationship with work, how to have a better relationship with money, how to have a better relationship with everything. And the individual takes that all on as the belief that it is doing all of that in the first place, of course, because that's how it feels for the individual. It actually feels for the individual in the dream that it is the center of everything that's happening, the center of the universe, and everything that is happening, arising in my, is an experience arising in my awareness, if you like. That seems to be how that experience is for the individual. And that's just the complicating factor all of the time. And that is the separation that it actually, the seeker or the individual, longs to be free of. It just doesn't know that. And doesn't want to know that either. Doesn't want to know about anything about that. Because it wants to know how to have the better relationship with itself, how to have the better relationship with life and everything else. But I would say it just all seems to continue. Friendships seem to continue. Parents, obviously seem to continue. In my case, anyway, there are parents, or apparently there are parents. Yeah, all seemingly continues, but not for someone. And there is no longer anyone having an experience of having or owning parents anymore as a personal experience, or having friendships anymore as a personal experience, or any kind of experience, really. When there's no experience, so then there's just no experience happening. It's just what appears to happen. But I would say it's just very simple, very natural, very ordinary, and just absolutely whole. I mean, it's everything, fullness and abundance. Everything just is that empty fullness. So apparent friendship is that empty fullness, is that wholeness. So there's nothing needed anymore by an individual in a relationship, a friendship with, or relationship with family, or a lover, or the world, its life itself. There's just no more relationship in that sense. So there's just no more need for that to be anyway. So all that complicating stuff that the individual imagines is going on in relationships is all just completely just not there. It's just gone. Question in the chat: what does it mean when we are expecting a problematic future? Well, the me lives as a reality where there is real time and a real future. So it's having an expectation of the future as a solidity or as a reality of some kind. That is its reality. The reality for the individual is there is a future, and then there is going to be all sorts of projection and thoughts about this potential future and how that's going to be. But it's not really for the individual about how the future is going to be. For the individual, it's about how am I going to be in the future, or how is the future going to affect me. The individual's only thinking about me. It's not thinking about its future. It's just thinking about how its future, its imagined future, is going to affect it, because it feels to itself, it feels it's real. The individual only appears for the individual. And part of that appearance for the individual is I am here and I am real. Therefore, I am going to have a future. I have had a past because I have memories of a past. I have memories of me having an experience with a past. And it just seems to give the past or the memories that sort of realness, that solidity, that it feels it is itself, this real solid thing, something existing. And that's not to say that this doesn't make plans for an apparent future. Yes, of course, yeah. That apparently happens, yeah. But the whole thing for the individuals just seems absolutely real. I think that's what a lot of the anxiety for the individual is about, because it feels it is real, a real something that is really moving through time and space, then that it is going to have a real experience, or there is going to be a real future where something real is going to happen in that sense. And I know that to the mind, that just sounds like when there isn't an individual, then there's someone just sitting here believing that there's nothing real about the future, and that kind of makes it okay. No, of course not. It's just apparent. What seemingly is no longer there when the individual dies is just the sense that there is something that this, whatever is happening to, including thoughts about a future. So it's just not being experienced as any kind of reality because there's no one that it's happening to. And that's a lived sense for the individual. The illusion is a seeming lived sense of something existing in the body or as the body, which is a real something, a person, an individual, to which all of this is happening to or for. And that just turns out not to be the case at all. I don't know what else to tell you. And it's not a case of not believing in there being an individual, because that would just be a person who just doesn't believe they are an individual anymore. No, it's this kind of lived sense. It's actually an energy, it's energetic. And that's what seemingly unravels, or can seemingly unravel. But that's just an apparent energy. That's boundless energy just appearing in the form of an apparent contracted, limited me energy. And of course, it doesn't mean anything when we are expecting a problematic future. Okay, welcome. Question in the chat. Do you vote? Is this redundant after the loss of the me? I bloody will be voting this time. Yeah, I do. Yeah, usually. Yeah. Yep. Good to know. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's opinions on things, of course. Yeah. Yeah. But they're meaningless. Voting is meaningless, of course. The individual, things like political views, though, of course, as with everything else, it takes that on as a part of its personal identity. So when there are two individuals engaged in a conversation about, say, politics or something like that, and one individual has a different opinion to another individual, then each individual will feel that their personal identity is being threatened by the other having a different opinion about politics, for example. So that would be perhaps an apparent difference. When there is no one, it just doesn't matter. However, there are still opinions and there's still voting. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. There's still changing the channel if EastEnders comes on to something else, anything else. There's still a turning off the radio if Harry Styles songs comes on. Although he's a huge supporter of Amyl and the Sniffers, who are a wonderful Australian kind of neo-punk band, which is a good thing. That's good. That's a good thing. Oh no, it's not Amyl and Sniffers I'm thinking of. It's a band called Wet Leg, an English band called Wet Leg, who I also quite like actually. EastEnders will never be lost. No, apparently not. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, not Amyl and Sniffers, Wet Leg. Question, is it important to losing all the concepts in relationship to awakening? Well, no, nothing is important in that sense at all, because I would, just two parts to that. I would firstly say apparent awakening has nothing to do with concepts at all. Concepts would be lost in, let's call it liberation, so-called liberation, than any kind of concepts that are there or beliefs or thoughts about how this is reality is or how I am or anything like that are all just completely just well, in most cases there's no rules, but it would seem that that's just completely destroyed with liberation. But then I would also say to that, there is no actual liberation, because there is no one, or there is no awakening, because there is already no one who needs to awaken or who even could awaken in the first place. There is no one who could become liberated. I have said that liberation is the end of the need for liberation, but it just seems that the obviousness with so-called liberation is that it's never going to happen. It just doesn't need to happen. Because as I said in the beginning, that the wholeness, the simpleness, the simplicity, the ordinariness and the naturalness of this wholeness is just never lost. It's only seemingly lost for the individual. But it's never really lost. So liberation is the end of the need for liberation. So even the concept of liberation will even destroy the concept that there needs to be liberation. Or to use the word awakening, although it's not a word I use very often, awakening will destroy any concepts about what an awakening is, or that there is even an awakening that could possibly happen somewhere else in the future. There's just this. This is it. And that's so disappointing for the individual. So disappointing for the seeker. I was talking about earlier, the seeker just living in that perpetual sense of motion of what's next. It's just, in fact, it just doesn't even hear it. It completely disregards that. It just completely rejects that. But something else might hear it. Something you will never know about. And this doesn't know about something that's never known. Does holding any concept become a hindrance in any way? No, it really doesn't make any difference what is currently being believed or what concepts there currently are. No, not at all. I mean, some communications can give the impression that understanding concepts is a part of it or is in some way important. It's not. So that can in some way or other just sort of go on reinforcing the idea that, whoa, let's get more concepts, you know, what more concepts can we talk about today? How can we frame this concept up a little bit differently so that something might sort of understand the concept in some way? No, it's just nothing to do with that whatsoever. I mean, it's literally, have you seen the old Looney Tune cartoons, you know, with the Roadrunner and the wolf, I've forgotten his name, Wile E. Coyote. And you know, in those old cartoons, when they're sort of running along so fast, they'll suddenly run off the edge of a cliff and not even realize, and they'll still sort of keep running for a little bit, and then they look down and do the straight down. It's almost, in a sense, it's almost a bit like that. You know, it can be just so, you know, it's just suddenly not there. You know, the seeker hasn't even had time to really kind of put any concepts or whatever it might be in the middle of to bed. It's just literally, you could literally just be in the middle of whatever it is you're doing, seeking wise, or whatever beliefs, concepts are bouncing around in the noggin at the time. Really doesn't matter. Or whether there's no thinking whatsoever. If you've managed somehow to achieve this perfect Zen state in meditation where there's no thoughts whatsoever, if it's that or if it's a mad head, it makes no difference at all. The bottom could just suddenly drop out of the lot energetically, and whatever is going on just doesn't matter. So no, it just really has nothing to do with whatever concepts are going on. But again, I would say that there can be some communications which give the impression that understanding the concepts is important. So in some ways that could go on sort of reinforcing the idea for the seeker that there's something for it to do. There's a new concept it needs to understand. You know, this meeting's going to be about this concept. You know, this weekend is going to be about this concept. We're going to explore this concept this weekend. We're going to explore this understanding, that kind of thing. So of course, yes, then the seeker will engage with that and just be like, yeah, give it to me. I'm up for it. I'm ready. Give me another concept. The seeker's always up for another concept. But no, it makes no difference. Does losing concepts help? No, not at all. No, as I just said, it makes no difference what's going on at all. Even if the brain is in this perfect Zen-like state of no concepts or beliefs or thoughts going on, I find that very difficult to imagine that could be happening, but maybe. But no, of course not. No, it's not about losing concepts or beliefs or anything like that. No. So it's not there isn't like a peeling off layers. I know it can sort of sound like that sometimes if it's said there can be an unraveling or an unraveling, but no, that's no. There can be an unraveling up to the point where it's obvious that there's nothing unraveling, or there is nothing to unravel for this to be wholeness. It literally just can be that the seeker will just be in the middle of seeking. The end of seeking is not a conclusion to seeking in any way. It's just suddenly the seeker's just no longer got anything left to be with, and it just can just, you know, disappear. But then what's revealed is there never was a seeker. There's a hand up, I think, is there? Does someone have a hand up?
Yeah. Hi, Neil. It's me,
Hello.
Jim.
Oh, hi, Jim.
Something has come up recently in other conversations surrounding the word neediness or needing.
Needing,
and need.
neediness, needing, right.
And I've had some weird experiences surrounding that, but in therapy, a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations were had about neediness
Mm.
and solutions. What do they call them? Techniques. Okay,
Yeah.
techniques for breaking the spell of
Mm.
neediness.
Mm.
And some of those things worked pretty good. I mean,
Sure.
there were times in therapy when I thought, "Oh my God, I'm there, man. I no longer have needs. I'm no
Yeah.
longer needy."
Mm-hmm.
And that lasts for maybe, I don't know,
Mm.
10 minutes,
Mm.
maybe
No,
10
yeah, I was
days.
about to say, then there's a need to have no needs, or there's a need to stay in this place of no need. Yeah.
Well, what's mysterious about this neediness thing is, at least in my experience, I can only talk about my experience. I'm not a speaker. I'm not a realized person. But recently I had this,
Neither am I, of course, Jim.
I had this falling away experience where the me disappeared. The
Mm.
self disappeared. Okay. I don't want to go through all the subtle details, but the very first thing I noticed about that was the neediness disappeared
Mm.
with it. I didn't need to know anything. I didn't need
Yep.
anything. I didn't need answers. I didn't need plans.
Yep.
What accompanied that no need was this incredible sense of freedom. So I just,
Mm.
God, I felt totally and completely free.
Mm.
Now that happened in therapy a few times where this
Mm.
neediness disappeared and I just felt completely and totally free.
Mm.
Oh my God, I can do anything now. But in my case, at least, this neediness returns.
Mm.
And since the me dropped away, the neediness is slightly different now. When it comes back, it's just slightly different, but it's still neediness. I
Mm.
need this, I need that.
Sure.
And it's absolutely astonishing stuff in a way.
Mm. Mm.
But based on what you're saying, I can see that it's absolutely and totally connected to
Mm.
the sense of self or the sense of identity or the me.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
me is the one that needs shit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's all comes down to a need to know. The
Yeah.
individual is the knower, and the function of the knower is to know. And it just seems to be that that's its automatic function is this need to know more, because it feels that if it feels that once it knows enough, then it will be in this sort of in some kind of special place that you're talking about, where there's no more need for anything or no more need for any knowing. But it thinks that is going to be the acquiring of enough. Once there is enough, there will no longer be any need. But of course, that we know that that's just not how that is. It's because it's going round and round in a little seeking in a little wheel of need. Really, it's just constantly.
Yeah.
And
the strange thing about this needy thing is I can actually talk myself out. I can tell myself or convince myself I don't need anything. I don't need a future. I don't need food. I don't need a girlfriend. I don't need a car. I don't even have a car anyway. I don't need this. I don't need that. And it feels pretty good, but for some weird reason I can't explain, it doesn't last. The needy stuff just creeps back in.
Yeah, but then for the person, then it needs to be that way then. So for me to be okay, there has to be no need for a girlfriend, there has to be no need for a car, there has to be no need for money. Do you see what I mean? It just becomes this, never-ending loop of need, and the need for the seeking really just changes form. So even if there's been for the seeker a sort of a hearing this type of communication, and a lot of the other sort of seeking pursuits or activities may have sort of naturally just sort of dropped away or have been dropped, then really it's just changing track to seeking in a non-duality meeting now, where it thinks it's about less need,
I'm sitting here thinking maybe this time the me will drop away and then it'll be gone, period.
Yeah, Neil's going to say something that's going to make me fall away.
Some magic word, and then I'll go,
never
oh God,
to happen.
I'm free again. I'm free.
It's never going to happen, Jim, because there's nothing that Neil can say that is going to make Jim fall away, because Jim, of course, isn't there already.
And I can't seem to find a technique. I can't seem to find anything to get this me to dissolve. When it dissolved, that time that it dissolved, just about a month ago or maybe 2 months. Anyway, sitting here right at this desk, it dissolved, but I didn't do it. It just, I can't explain. It just happened.
It's a surprise, yeah.
And now, because because the aftermath of that was so terrific. I keep thinking, if I could just do it again, man, if I could just find the switch, where's the get rid of me switch?
Yeah.
I don't, it's maddening stuff because
Yeah.
I can see that it's not something I'm going to do, and it's not something to do. It just happened.
Yep. Yeah, it's a complete surprise. Yeah. Yeah.
And even in therapy, a couple of times when I had these no me or no need, the need fell away. In therapy, it seemed like it just sort of happened. It wasn't like I found this switch, this get rid of your needs switch, and
Sure.
it's absolutely maddening stuff.
Yeah, but that's how it is. There is just, so what you're describing is just what appears to happen.
Yeah. Okay. That's the only way I can deal with it now.
And that's how, well, that's how this is. There is just what apparently arises or appears to happen. Me's got nothing to do with it. Me's just an additional add-on thing that in some way energetically just claims everything that naturally appears or naturally arises as mine, or I have something to do with that. Just by being present to experience it, it's automatically mine. I did it.
Yeah. When that me, I want to go back to that experience because it's the only one I have. I don't have anything else. When that thing disappeared, it was glaringly obvious. I want to say to me, but it really wasn't to me. It was glaringly obvious that everything simply happens.
Yep.
And it's happening automatically, and nobody and nothing does it. It just simply happens. And that was so wonderful, but it wasn't threatening and it wasn't amazing. It was just,
of course,
it was just a reality. Just
no, it's completely natural. Of course,
and
it's
so
the
now,
most natural thing you can imagine.
And now when really weird, like last few days, really weird and bizarre things have been happening. Like this morning, I was going to sleep in, and your voice, your face and your voice said, "Hi, Jim." And I realized I got to get up and attend the meeting today. But I realized that just happened. I don't know if you were there talking to me.
That's my non-duality powers.
It just, and to me, for me at least, because I can't get rid of needs, and the only thing I can do anymore is just say, well, that's what happens, or that happened, or
yeah. I mean, you can say, my guru appeared to me this morning and told me to come to a meeting.
Yeah. And I don't want, I'm not taking credit for that happening. It just happened. Okay. And I got out of bed and got dressed, and it just happened. I didn't do it. I mean, yeah, I could say I did. I could say, yeah, I was there doing this, doing that. But this thing about needy, the needy thing just makes me insane because it's just always there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and it's energetic, really. The need really is, it is seeking, and it is this response to the sense that that wholeness has been lost.
Well, when I'm feeling needy, it feels like I feel trapped or cornered or whatever.
Well, whatever the individual does to sort of find satisfaction, it's trying to satisfy the wholeness that isn't lost, which is why it's never satisfied, because it's trying to satisfy something that isn't the case in the first place. It's completely illusory. So it's trying to satisfy an illusion in that sense. It's like, trying to feed a ghost or something. It's just,
I can talk myself out of the need. Like let's say I need breakfast or whatever, and I can actually talk myself out of that. But
that's a need of the body, isn't it? The body still has needs.
There's other, mostly emotional needs or psychological needs that pop up, and it's like, oh man, it's just maddening.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
I need to do something about my money. I'm 84, so I need to do something about my health. I need to do something about my money. Notice the word my. I need to.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, because the individual takes on everything as itself. It's not claiming everything for itself. It actually claims everything as itself. My money is mine. It's part of me. My reality is a part of me. It's mine. We were talking about, my opinions are a part of my personal identity, and that's mine. And if that's threatened, then
I need to be right. Like in arguments, political arguments, I need to be right.
Yeah. And it's just never satisfied. Yeah.
I need to have a future. I'm 84. I don't have much of a future left. I need to have a future.
Well, for all we know, none of us have a future.
God, man.
How do we know there isn't a huge asteroid? This hasn't got anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
How do we know there isn't a huge asteroid heading for Earth right this moment?
At my age, a stroke could take me out like that. Like,
Or you
like
might
within,
or you might outlive us all, Jim.
a what?
Or you might outlive us all.
A what?
Yeah, or you might outlive us all.
Come on, man.
Well,
There's a number.
who
There's
knows?
a number.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm just being facetious.
No, I would love to have an eternal life, right? That's a need. That's an interesting need, right?
Mm,
I need to have an eternal life.
mm,
But as Jim, as a person, as a self, as me.
yeah. Oh, that's all the individual wants to do is to
Yeah.
go on existing. Absolutely.
I want to
Is
go
the
on.
death is the most frightening thing for the individual because it's the ultimate unknowing. Even the individual can't possibly, well, I don't know, there's religion and there's samsara and all of these lovely stories and tales about what's going to happen when this body dies or changes form, whatever beliefs are going on at the time. And they are all ways to, for the individual to, in its own mind or in its own story, continue. But really, death is apparently the end. As far as anyone can know, it's the end. And the individual just doesn't know what's going to happen after death. So it's just terrified of that. So, yeah, it comes up with all kinds of ideas about what's going to happen at death and, rebirth and all of these kinds of ideas. And, yeah. And whether that's the case or not, who cares?
I could talk for hours and hours about what I know and what I've experienced and what I've seen in the psychic realm, like life after death. Okay. I could talk for hours about that.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, it's exactly the same story as whether it's living in an afterlife or living in this life. It's almost exactly the same story over and over again. I need.
Well, it's completely meaningless, as is what we're talking about here now, as so-called non-duality. It's completely meaningless because there is just this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just this, right?
But
Like
no
there's a
one
guy
knows that.
Bob Adams in Australia. He says, "What's wrong with right now?" Well, what's wrong with right now?
Well, for the individual, just right now is always wrong, and there's nothing it can do about that. That's the problem. I don't know who it is you just mentioned, but quite often, I used to read books that will start off with a great introduction like that, like what's wrong with right now, and then the rest of the book will kind of be about how to find acceptance that this is right now. Like Toller and his Power of Now and everything like that, which I'm sure has helped thousands, if not millions, of people to in some way have a better experience, I'm sure. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's always that thing, it's always that sort of selling that idea that the individual, there is an individual who can do something to be okay with what's now. And it just never is, because it's just automatically, as soon as there is the arising of the individual in the tiny child, then separation is seemingly created for that individual, and then wholeness is seemingly lost. And that's just seems to be how it is until that apparently falls away. But when that does apparently fall away, what's revealed is that it was just appearing as a dream.
Well, I still rely quite a bit on those techniques I learned in therapy about
Sure.
disposing of needs.
Sure.
But the problem with most of those things is they don't last. They don't really.
Well, of course, there's no suggestion here that you should drop anything or change anything, as we were talking about concepts earlier. This isn't about dropping concepts or ideas, or it's got absolutely, this is what the individual can't believe. This communication has absolutely nothing to do with you or you or you or you or you or you or this Absolutely nothing to do with it. It's got nothing to do with how this is appearing. It's just that whatever is appearing is wholeness. That's the communication. It really isn't about how one feels or what's going on for one in one's life, so to speak, or it's nothing to do with that, because of course it can appear as all of those things. It's unconditional freedom. So it can appear as all of those things. It can appear as anxieties. It can appear as worries. It can appear as having therapy and learning techniques to make this a little bit more manageable or feel a little bit easier. Yeah, of course. It doesn't matter. All of it is unconditional freedom. There's no right way of being or wrong way of being. It's all unconditional freedom already. And that's the end of the need. The end of the need is the end of the need for this to appear or have to appear in some kind of way that is going to satisfy the need of the individual. And that just isn't no longer there when the me dies. There's just no need for this to appear a certain way at all. It's just what appears. It's just what apparently happens, which can include anything. It's not exclusive. It's not excluding anything. It's just whatever is appearing to happen. It's very simply and ordinary and naturally what's appearing to happen.
And the other weird thing about that, Neil, when that me dissolved, okay, when that self dissolved, it seemed like it was permanent. It seemed like this is the way it seemed like, okay, end of him. And it seemed like life was going to be free from that point forward. And it was from that moment forward, it was going to be a totally free life. And it seemed real. I mean, it seemed like that was going to be the reality. And all it took was a night's sleep. All it took was going to sleep that night, waking up the next morning, and I'm Jim again. Oh God, I'm Jim again. I can't believe it.
Okay. So, when it's over, there's just no one left sort of questioning, is it this? Is it this? You know, it's just over. There's just nothing, there's no longer anything just apparently existing, you know, as a something here anymore. It's just
for you. You're talking about for you.
Well, that's the thing. This is the paradox in the communication. That's how it sounds to an individual when this says that. But unbelievably, that's actually exactly how it is there too. It's just that there may be an illusion happening that this is happening to someone who needs to fall away.
Okay, I try that.
And that's not how it should be.
And sometimes I try to tell myself, oh no, I'm kidding myself. The me hasn't returned. There's no me back. But the neediness, see, that's the reason that caught my attention. The neediness just keeps creeping in all over the place.
Yeah.
So I know from the neediness that the me is still here in some form or another. Even if I want to say, oh, the need died, the need disappeared. There's no me here anymore. But man, this neediness, I'm afraid, I'm angry.
Yeah. It's a very threatening world for the individual. Yeah.
Oh man, I got so frightened the other day. I don't want to go through all the details. I got so frightened and I kept telling myself, but there's no me, there's no me. God, I was so frightened then. I got so scared I wanted to throw up. I don't want to go through all the details about that, but I couldn't believe I was frightened again after all that wonderful stuff that happened.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating. You know, sometimes a glimpse is the worst thing that can happen. But my sense is that there is still something holding on in a glimpse. I think there's still something there in a glimpse, really, because there just would be no coming back, and that's seemingly what then sort of creates there can be a sort of a kind of profound relaxation of that sort of contraction. And everything can just, you know, just sort of seemingly just sort of open up, and just the emptiness can be seen. But there's still something there going, oh, look what's happening. There's something, well, something's going on, something, you know, and then and just as that happens, well, it can just seem just then come back.
And no amount of arguing, discuss. I can get some relief. There's some forms of relief that are available, but it's a lot of work to get there, to remember. Oh God, I gotta remember that technique. But this thing about the glimpse, I've heard people say that before. There's nothing worse than to have a glimpse where you're free, but then the next day you're not free.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
man.
that can be awful and can be very frustrating. Yeah.
And I know better. Tony Parsons turned me on this. I know better than to yearn for, want, or try to get the glimpse back. You know, I don't know how they're me dissolved, and I don't know how to make it dissolve. But I know better than to try to go back there and try to do it over and over again. You know, you gotta get that glimpse back. Get that glimpse back. So I'm just floating. I don't know what else to do, man.
Well, there is nothing to do because there is no you to do it.
Yeah, that's the pathetic part about it. I got to do it, but there's no who's gonna do it.
Okay. Cheers, Jim. Nice to speak to you.
Let me get off the line here, man.
Yeah, no, nice to talk.
Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, unless there's anyone else who would like to come in and ask something. I'll have a 30-second buzzer for this. 30 seconds beginning now. No? Okay.